Sorry, can you spell your name again?
Yeah, it's Alex Hutchinson, Alexhutchinson.
Creative Director.
Yep.
Correct. Okay. Is it too early for any anecdotes from the marketing team from the UK side about dealing with all the British?
The Americana?
Yeah.
It's very interesting because you get the idea that everyone was worried it's going to be like jingoistic, sort of rah-rah, go Team America, which was part of the reason why we chose a Native American assassin, to have someone who was one step removed, and also we're just trying to remind everybody that their stories have always been about assassins versus Templars. You know what I mean? The history is the backdrop, not the actual story of the game. But in Europe, I think I've heard a couple of things about people being worried about stabbing their ancestors in England, but which makes me laugh because they weren't worried about stabbing everybody else's ancestors. So it's a little bit, but no, they seem to be warming to it. So yeah.
You made it a very interesting point about how when it was out on the shelves, you didn't want it to be the first draft, that you essentially wanted it to be Assassin's Creed 3.5. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can just sort of go over that again and just sort of...
Yeah, so video games, because, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, but I think it's connected to just the sheer burn rate on a video game, like the amount that it costs per month to make a game, and you always end up at full capacity. So the last months of your project are the most expensive. So there's this urge to draw a line and ship it, and at the same time, because it's based on technology, there's a sense of you can fall behind. You know what I mean? Like you can sit on a movie for a year thinking about it, and you're not going to look dated when you release it. But in a video game, you could basically sit on it for a year, and someone else has overcome you with the technology. So that means that we always ship as fast as possible. Once we have something that ships, we ship it, and I think that we can do so much better. Like we can work on pacing, we can work on tuning, we can work on this notion of actually playing our own game several times and thinking on it for a while. So our goal is to get a really early alpha, to play through it a lot as a team, to sort of collate feedback, to discuss our own game, and then edit it. And if we do that, I think we can make something really special.
Nice. Now, I know a lot's also already been mentioned about how the conscious effort you guys are making to give this guy a completely different type of background from the past characters. It does seem a little obvious that should be sort of what this new opportunity with this property is. I don't know if you can just go in more detail. You
mean that you're surprised that people are surprised?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny as well. Like I think it's a compliment to the previous character that people were people liked Ezio a lot. But I agree. I like the fact that at first people were startled by the setting, and now people seem a little startled by the character. I think that means we're on the right track. That we have something that's actually interesting, that people have opinions about, that will allow us to express unusual ideas that lots of games don't usually tackle, like the role of a minority in history, and the role of people who basically lost out in a big way in all of this. They didn't get what they wanted. They thought they would be able to play politics and deal with the British and all this sort of stuff, and it didn't work out. And the history, everyone knows the history of the native people in North America.
I imagine this chalkboard maybe back in 2008, 2009, when you guys were already just sort of brainstorming different settings. Was there any concern about any kind of technical limitations when you knew that you would have to deal with a setting with so many characters in order to be convincing? It doesn't seem like a setting where you'd be happy doing it half-assed.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's definitely that. There's all kinds of competing ideas. There's is it somewhere fresh and new that we haven't been before? Do we have anything to say about this period that we think is interesting? What opportunities does it give? So we thought the forest was both a technical challenge and an opportunity. It's again about navigation. So building that and then weighing up all these factors. And of course, you're always wandering over to the engineers' desks and saying, "Hey, we were talking about snow today. Do you think we can pull off snow?" And they're like, "What? You mean a texture?" And you're like, "No, we're thinking like knee deep, waist deep snow." And then of course there's the usual arc. It's like the 12 steps of it's like there's panic followed by anger, followed by resignation, followed by success and happiness usually, or quiet deletion of the feature. You know what I mean? So you're always debating your big technical issues with your engineers, and I think any setting, if you want to push the game forward, is going to have big technical challenges.
Okay. I don't know if we could go into more detail about sort of the involvement of the animals. The way they were sort of going after that one wounded Brit, it almost seemed to imply that there was a sort of like a relationship, but I didn't want to be too presumptuous because there's this whole stereotype about Native Americans being one with nature and all that, but I don't know if you could
we played with
that.
it. Like, I think, we definitely want this idea that the animals are more than just sort of, objects in the world, that they have some basic intelligence. So we like the idea that wounded characters could attract wolves, could attract predators, and so you can kind of abuse this and use this to your advantage in the game. You might wound someone and then leave them and let the wolves finish them off. We like that sort of fiction, that idea that the player could build that story in their head. But we didn't want Connor to be commanding the wolves. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't want the wolf attack button just because, for exactly what you said. It's a little fantasy, and it seems a little not racist, but a little obvious.
Okay. It's interesting how much. We sort of got caught up in the last 3 installments. I mean, to the point that we starting on Assassin's Creed 2, we didn't even think that we would just go back and just explore Ezio's story further to that degree. And the way 3 is presented in contrast, there's a small part of me that almost sees 3 as almost like a reboot in certain respects. I don't know if anyone's ever brought that up in that sort of
for sure. I think that we see the numbered assassins as fresh starts. Any franchise that goes on for years and years and years, you have this challenge where on one side you have fondness and history, and people can get caught up in the story of one character over a long time. And on the other hand, now we're asking people to remember 4, 5, 6 years of backstory. So I think it becomes dangerous, in terms of keeping the franchise fresh and alive and attractive to lots of people. So we sort of do want this to be a clean point. If you've thought about an Assassin's Creed game before but didn't try it, then maybe this is the one you get on board. Or if you're a fan of the Revolutionary War or that sort of period of history, like, this is a clean start for you. So we never think of it as a reboot in the sense that the narrative all does fit together. Like, we do make sure that everything is correct, but we don't want any obstacles for people to jump on board.
I don't know if there's a time or place to, from your opinion, think about gameplay elements from the Ezio games that were effective and useful and great in their place, but sort of ran their course. And I don't know if you could mention any sort of...
for sure. I think that you have this challenge with a character that goes from game to game where you can't remove things, or you have to have a very clear justification for taking something away. If I had a sword, 3 games ago, I should still have a sword. It makes no sense that I don't have this anymore. But with a new character, we can sort of clear the decks a little bit. We can say, what does he need? What makes the game great? How do we build this? So a lot of those things that might have felt a little extraneous, we've been able to trim from the game and just really focus it on assassination and this period of history and those 2 fantasies.
Nice. No, one thing I also did notice, it looks like you guys really made a really strong emphasis in having things being more mobile in terms of the platforming and the haystacks. And in fact, there was that one chase, I guess in the town, where there was this really well-timed carriage that went through, and I'll just say, it'll be interesting. Obviously in the demo, you have the luxury of being able to orchestrate that, but it'll be interesting to see the odds of which a player could have something that looks that seamless.
I think the only bit that you're right, the only bit that's sort of timing based is the passing of the cart in that one, the cutting through the house, all these sort of things that are sort of there. This idea of being able to break, hide from people by cutting through a building. That's pretty emergent. That'll happen 100% of the time. But we wanted a character who was super mobile. We wanted someone who was, always in motion, who was able to cleanly move between navigation and fight. You saw at the end of the demo that the new assassination focuses on running assassination. The idea that you could charge up to people, hit X, and stay in motion and change direction, or keep moving through people. So that's sort of core to the character.
Okay. I was rather impressed at how the demo, however early it is, you were running at close to 60 frames per second, especially with a lot of scenes. Is that going to be really important to you guys with the final build? Because the series has been able to get away with
Yeah,
30 or slightly less.
Yeah, it's pretty much 30. I don't know that we'll be able to get. You know, for me, the frame rate's about stability more than the number. You know, like it's fluctuations in frame rate that are really distracting and really upsetting. So that's what we're aiming for, just like to keep it really smooth.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the best projects do not become classics without a sort of a trimming the fat process. Mm-hmm. And you like delved into a couple of those features, sort of the things that you did scale back a bit, like that one weapon. And I look at this Alex Ross art. I could already see like the iconography both in just the belt and the weapon. I don't know if you have any other like sort of anecdotes on sort of things that you sort of scaled back on.
I think that's the most important thing to us right now is this concept of editing. As I said, we want to finish the draft of the game so we can edit in terms of pacing and in timing and make sure that the big events feel big to people and that they don't miss them. But we're always debating controls, mechanics. The team is really proactive, which is exciting. So people, for a long time, we didn't have a bow. Because we were pretty sure that most people had switched to guns. I think I mentioned in the talk, but with a bit more research, we found that many Native American tribes were still using them on horseback because they were much easier to use, much more accurate on a horse. So we put it back in, and also gives us, even from the back, that had this added bonus of making the character pop. You know what I mean? Immediately, it's a different character. From the rear, and sadly in games you spend most of your time looking at your character from behind. What else have we done to him? There's been I think we've gone through at least 20 versions of the lead character.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like we went through versions that were really native, and then we realized that it just doesn't fit this idea that you've joined this Western organization and they made this special outfit, just to represent your past. So we decided in the end to keep it more Western, but you see he's brought parts of his gear, whether it's the moccasins and and the gear itself, he's adjusted the base outfit to sort of fit things that he's comfortable with. So we're always in a process of adding and refining things. And I'm sure there'll be minor things. It's pretty much there right now, but I'm sure if you took that poster and compared it to the very final version, you'll be able to find things that we tweak even from now.
This one was, I'd imagine there'd be like an appeal in tragedy if you ever considered making him a British assassin. Is that the way the game would possibly end?
Yeah, it would be the end of time. Yeah.
It seems almost too convenient to possibly consider Ben Franklin as the obligatory, like, Da Vinci character.
Yeah, it's comfortable, and so very early on, I remember someone saying he's a genius as well, and an inventor, and and so we just sort of threw it up on the whiteboard, and then it was like, wait, he invents the lightning rod and the glass harmonia, and that weird instrument, people play the glasses, he invented a musical instrument with a pedal that revolves various sized glasses, and you dip your fingers in water and you play it. It sounds like cats dying, but it's so he's not exactly inventing things that are useful for an assassin, and it's too convenient, as you said. This notion that you'd feel like you were playing AC Brotherhood again or AC2 again, and it was very important to us that it feel like its own game. You know what I mean? That you might have familiar elements, but that overall all of the big gameplay loops are new.
All right, last one. You mentioned taking team members from Assassin's Creed 2. Mm-hmm. Did you have any sort of like lighthearted, like sort of like gripes or like certain like maybe junior developers who were stuck going into Brotherhood who wish they could have gone into 3?
No, I mean the teams all still work together, even though there are multiple teams. We took people from AC2, then when Brotherhood finished, we took people from Brotherhood, then when Revelations finished, we took people from Revelations. So no, there's lots of crossover. And I think, the fun thing about working on Brotherhood was, it's a different challenge, and people got to ship another game and, and learn. Every process of going from start to finish on a game, there's always stuff you can learn and stuff you can get better at. And, in the end, that was a terrific game too.
Wonderful. Thank you.